had a very interesting talk this evening with somebody called Aalekh Shara, and he was a speaker at the Blockchain Innovation Conference. He worked for the Indian government. He since then left the government and did an MBA in America, and he now went back to India, and he worked on a contact tracing app in India, which has now been released. So he came back from America on the 23rd of March. It was introduced somewhere at the end of April, and now 100 million people are using it. And in this talk I have with him, which takes an hour, he first starts with a demonstration of the app. So if you're only interested in that, you can see the app. You can see how many people use the app around you, how many people are infected with COVID, and you can have all kinds of information about it. You can self-assess yourself. It works with Bluetooth and with GPS coordinates, but they're only saved on the app locally. And only when you're infected, when when you have done a test and out of official healthcare system has declared you COVID infected, at that moment, the information is released, and all the people who have been in contact with you are getting, are basically warned. And so far, there's 100 million people using it. They've already found 60,000 people which have been, which were suspected. And if the app tells you that you've been very close to somebody, then you have between 20 and 40% chance that you really have COVID. So, and it's already, even though less than 7% of the people have downloaded the app, it's quite a substantial amount of the new cases which are being found with the app. So the app is really working at a much more useful rate. You don't need 60% of it. So he's giving a demonstration of the app. He's telling how the back office works, how the front office, how it was with Bluetooth, how it was organized. It's a very small group of people from the government, but a lot of volunteers working together. They're going to give the app Bluetooth. They're going to make it so open source. And it's really step by step how in a couple of weeks an app like that was created, spread all over India. And then in the end, we talk about all the results, which he basically is presenting. Very interesting app. Enjoy.
This is the other interesting feature. We give real-time information in an anonymized and aggregated form to people within 500 kilometers, 1 kilometer, etc. So you get a signal of, how safe your area is, how many, so you can see how many people have done the test. One user was self-assessed as unwell within 500 meters. In my area, there was no COVID-19 positive aarogya setu user found.
Oh yeah.
So all of this is now the entire philosophy of the app has been, first of all, optimize and reduce the amount of deaths that will be caused by this pandemic. Secondly, try and increase the value add that you're giving for the same amount of personal data that you're having to take. So for the quantum of personal data, provide the most value, right? And so if you look at this feature, this is actually very consonant with any principle of open data or government open data policies. Mm-hmm. Instead of just taking this data, we want to give that data back to people so that they can take corrective action. In a democracy, we feel it's very important for people to have the power to give consent and to take action basis information. And so the purpose of the app and the vision behind this app is not to take information and you make it usable by a single party, yeah, or by a single government or whatever. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But the purpose is really to empower everyone to be able to take concerted and coordinated action against this enemy as a society, and that's why this app is there. So if you look at to just complete, so this is, then on the media side, you have some videos, on various things, advice from doctors, how to make your own mask at home, for instance, and things like that.
Which is the team, who basically controls the content management for that, particular media?
The government of India.
Yeah, but what is the government? That's a big group. I mean, you have a do
Yeah.
you have a small team somewhere? I mean, is it like
So it's
5 people or 10 people, or is it per
no, no,
state,
no.
or
So
how does it work?
there's a public-private effort. It started somewhat like how you mentioned in Netherlands, where there was a hackathon, few companies got together, then they selected. There was a proper selection process. Which solution is the best, um, and it's a very good example of government agility and whole of government action. So the entire government coordinated, and within 3 weeks, we were able to launch an app which 50 million people downloaded in 13 days.
Wow.
I myself have worked in government, and I've never seen this sort of agility
No.
ever, and I think it's very positive.
Uh-huh.
Uh, Now there's a whole group which is controlled by the National Informatics Center, which is Government of India's IT sort of um, you know it works under the IT ministry,
Yeah.
and it's the one responsible for government information technology.
Mm-hmm.
And then there are a whole host of contributors and volunteers who are operating on it as well to
Wow. So
design it.
you have somewhere in that government, and then you are in that part of the government, right? I mean,
I'm no
you're
longer part of the government. Actually, I was in the government, and now
yeah.
I'm a private contributor. So my role has been to design and implement, along with the data science team, the algorithm for Bluetooth contact tracing, basis
Okay.
epidemiological and network science information.
And did you do
Uh,
that as a volunteer of this project,
yes,
or as being hired by the government?
no, I was a volunteer. So the story is funny. I was doing my MBA at Chicago booth. Then we got the information that uh, the cases were rising, and there were rumors that at any point the country may go into lockdown. So I decided to come back because classes were anyway virtual.
Yeah.
And my former employer at Niti Aayog, they reached out and they said, "Look, we're building this. Is there any way you can contribute?" And I found that the most I could contribute is by working on the data science aspect of this app. So that's where I got involved. Started talking to global and Indian experts on what the epidemiological data is, what kind of models are there, and we designed and iterated on various models,
Okay.
implemented it, and now we have ground truth, and so
Okay.
the
Well,
model has been validated.
let's first look at the app, and then we talk about how it
Sure.
came about. So there is a small team which basically does that media, the plans the video. Are these also volunteers, or is that an official organization now with who is being paid for the people who are
No, so
doing that?
these are, for example, if you look at this, this is a famous actor in India, Ajay Devgan, and he's made a interesting video to explain to the common person that this app is like your bodyguard, right?
Okay. Can you
And
click on it for a second? See what it
I
does?
don't know if it'll play.
Yeah, we'll
Will it?
see. We'll see.
Okay.
And this is, but he does it also on a voluntarily basis.
Yeah, this was all volunteer. I don't know if there's the
Yeah, it works fine. Yeah, it works fine. So he basically, and he's a famous actor, and he basically
yeah,
makes this video
yeah, just like
showing.
that, and then we put it there. So whatever the content management team put this here.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah. So
Okay,
this is his alter ego, and he's saying that I'm protecting you and your family. Um, and then later on,
cool.
and then
Okay,
he's gonna kind of go into his phone and say that I'm always on the phone. So it's just an intuitive way to explain to people, what the purpose of the app is.
yeah,
And then we have the COVID update section where you have, a lot of data on the disease, cumulative or daily numbers,
yeah,
everything you showed, state-wise, right? Um, how many have recovered, what are all the locations, because the entire idea is to give data back to people.
yeah,
Then there are some videos on how we are doing, how we are privacy first by design, how we never share personal information to address user concerns. um, our prime minister has been an important champion of this app. This is a quote by him.
mm-hmm.
um, then there is a citizen fund where you can donate via UPI, which is the system I showed you last time I was there
Oh
in
yeah,
Netherlands.
I know UPI.
With, with
Still very jealous about that. Yeah,
I just click here, and I can uh, just you know wait.
yeah.
Yeah, I just, like, if I want to, I'll just donate like some rupees right now, um, and
How much is
put it.
that? 500 rupees.
Yeah, I can't. Yeah, so that's nice. I no, I just entered my PIN code and it didn't show you my PIN code, right?
No.
Yeah, great. Okay, my payment failed for some reason, but
Yeah.
yeah, but usually, that's how it works.
And
And
I saw that there was a new feature called ePass. What is the ePass feature?
so this is part of the intelligent lockdown idea, right? So the idea is, and this is still, they're working on it, but the idea is if you have a certain risk level, right, then you would want to you would want to ensure that people are under quarantine. They can't go into locations and infect people if you're at a higher risk level.
Yeah.
And so a lot of economists say, so interestingly, one of my classes that I'm doing virtually at Booth, it's taught by Professor Kevin Murphy, amongst others. And the idea is that when you do any sort of isolation in the long term, it has to be managed such that only the people that are infecting the most are the ones that have to isolate the most. Otherwise, your economy will stop running.
Yeah.
And so ePass is a system that can facilitate that. Obviously, it has to be very well designed, and all the confidence intervals, etc., have to be very low. And so we just got the first set of ground truth data 3 days back, and we're going to extensively work on it before implementing any such thing. And
And what will it do? What will it do?
I'm not so clear on it myself because my job
So
is to do the
will it
contact
tell
tracing.
me? Well, I mean, you say you are safe. Will this be more a more official system? You are safe, that you basically can prove, hey, I have a pass,
Kind
that
of,
I am,
kind of.
and
Yeah.
based on where I've been and where I've traveled and blah blah blah. You get a little bit more higher level with a higher amount of reliability status,
Yes, there's something like that. You would be able
okay,
to prove that you're a safe person at this point in time.
and that you're
Um,
allowed to travel. That you're allowed to travel.
maybe, yeah,
That you get
maybe,
privileges of
yeah.
not doing
So
that.
instead of saying that, look, everyone has to be in lockdown, think of it like this: everyone doesn't have to be in lockdown. Only the people who are at risk and need to be protected, they need to be under a lockdown, right?
Okay,
And so
cool.
this can facilitate that. Now, if you look at one more aspect, which I wanted to say, this is a self-assessment, right?
Yeah.
And it kind of asks you, are you experiencing any of the following symptoms? No. Have you ever had? No. Have you ever traveled anywhere? No. Right? Have I, which of the following apply to you? None of the above. I think there's some issue with the screen share. Yeah.
No, it's fine.
Yeah.
Goes great.
Yeah. So this is like an intuitive way to quickly self-assess. So when I did that, this information is now in the is on my phone. If I were at risk, then it would have gone to the server. So
And
basically,
if I was at risk, would I have a choice to put that to the server, or would that
I
be?
have, yes, you do. And that choice and consent is taken from you when you download the app itself.
Oh, okay,
Um,
but I mean, once I downloaded the app, I give a consent to basically share that information.
if you're
Once the app thinks I'm
risk,
at
exactly.
risk. Okay.
Because the important part to cover, Vincent, is that this app and any app like this, it has an externality and a public goods effect, right? So it basically helps you protect others around you.
Sure.
So if you get an infection, then you are alerted early. So you have parents at your home, or if you have grandparents at your home, right?
Yeah.
You want to protect them, and this gives you that information.
Yeah. Hey, question. I logged in with my phone number, right? And it knows also, and it stores my Bluetooth connections I have, and it
Oh,
stores
okay.
also, and it
Yeah, yeah.
also stores and it also basically monitors my GPS. What does
No,
it store on the phone, and at what point does it send something to the server?
sure. Let me answer all those questions, but let me just stop sharing because I'm getting an
I will do
echo
that.
effect.
I will
Yeah.
do that.
Sorry. Yeah. All right. So the app is completely privacy first by design. So the location information is not taken all the time. It's only taken when under 3 or 4 conditions, which are clearly enumerated. Basically, I think when you're at risk, the first time you register, and at that point, just to understand where the spread may be happening. So there are 2 reasons a contact tracing app is useful. And this kind of app provides you, so one reason is that you're able to alert others who may be at risk. The second reason is you want to know where there are emerging hotspots, right? And there's a technique called syndromic mapping, basis which we're getting very, very good results, like 95% or 100% accurate in some cases, where we're able to tell 11 to 12 days in advance at a pin code level that this area may become a hotspot, because people start reporting some small symptoms, and that signal convolved with the density is strong enough to be picked up.
Uh-huh.
And so that's the second aspect of why you take GPS information.
Yeah.
So what I said was, so there are these two reasons you do it. We are the only country in the world currently which has a platform which can do. In fact, today I was on a call with a senior academic from Oxford, right, who was one of the first to publish a paper on contact tracing, and he said that no country has this kind of platform where you have not only the data on contacts, but also the data on symptoms as well as the data on self-reporting. So whenever you are assessed at risk, you may get a call from a government program called Ayushman Bharat, and they may ask you, are you well? They may give you free advice on how to take care of your family, and that data also gets recorded. Um,
And
so
how
it
many
gives you a
times
comprehensive.
how many times does the app ask you to self-assess yourself? Or is that
So if you're safe, then you don't have to. But if you're at risk, let's say you were in with a infected person, then it may ask you, hey, do you want to self-assess again? How are you feeling today? So that
okay?
logic is kind of
And then
dependent on your
and
risk.
then so I'm going through my life and I'm everywhere. I'm meeting people. My you basically every couple of seconds you basically see if there's a Bluetooth connection. At how many registration? If I pass you and we share 1 second Bluetooth, is that already recorded or is it minimum of 10 seconds or 20
That's
seconds
a good
or
question.
how
That's a
does it
good
work?
question. That's a good question. Currently, it's about 2 times a minute.
Two times
Um,
a minute. So you have to
yeah,
basically spend 30
yeah.
seconds with
So
somebody, and then is that then I basically you and I are basically registered. We're together for more than 30 seconds if we are at Bluetooth distance, and then is also the GPS location registered at that point.
um, so yes, but it's stored on your device. So
It's
all
stored.
of this
Yes.
interaction
Yeah,
history
but
is only
it's the
stored.
connection. It's an ID with you, the Bluetooth ID with you, or
Yeah.
some ID with you,
Yes. So
and the
there's a
connection and where we met. Okay,
yes.
and that is
So there's a
stored on my
device ID.
device. And that's stored on my device. Okay.
Yeah, that's not taken on the server. So
No.
that, in fact, let me tell you, we have already implemented something called multiple degree tracing in code, and I've been fighting to run that because it can give you 20 or 30% more results. But I'm not able to run it because we don't have consent yet from the people on that. So once we prove results, then maybe we can run it. Essentially, today we can only take the data of people who are known to be infected,
Yes.
and then we look at them, and then we find out who they could have infected and warn them. But we
Yeah.
don't take anyone else's data, and unless those conditions are met, the data from your device never travels to the server. That's
Okay.
point one.
But to make it clear, I self-report myself. Okay. And I
No,
self-report myself and I say, hey, I'm having cough. I have this and this and this and
no,
this
no,
and
no, no,
this.
no, no,
What happens then? No,
no,
I
no.
then
So
I can do that. I can self-assess myself and saying I'm in trouble. Does the
yeah,
app say go to a doctor and get
yeah,
tested?
yeah. So no, it doesn't say go to a doctor, but it says you may be unwell, and it gives you some steps. Right. There's also a platform which is actually a private platform called coordinated by the principal scientific advisor's office on it, called Aarogya Mitra. So if you click on it, that's a completely separate platform. There's no data connectivity, so you have to log in again. But if you
Okay.
click on that, then you can do
Yeah.
teleconsultation as well. So there are multiple private players on that.
Yeah. No, but
It's
I mean, I go
yeah.
in the app and I basically register myself, and and the app says, "Hey, you need to take steps." Is
Yeah.
at that time, at that moment, is then the data shared, or does it involve another
No,
step?
no. So the data is only shared when you are at risk. Otherwise, the data is not shared.
Yeah, but I mean,
It's
I
shared
say,
with you.
"Hey, I'm coughing. I'm breathing. I have all
Yeah,
kinds of problems." I
yeah,
self-assess myself, and so that the app says, "Hey, you're at risk." At that
yes,
moment,
yes,
at that moment,
yes. And the reason that's important is that's how you do syndromic mapping.
Mhm.
That is the way we're able to actually understand where there are emerging hotspots, so that supplies can be concentrated in those areas, and the local administrations can have masks,
Yeah.
can have sanitizers, and all those supplies
Yeah, yeah.
in that
So
area.
you see a bunch of people starting to report from a certain area,
Yeah,
and basically, I report myself as being under risk because I have all these systems.
Yeah.
all the people who I've met in the last how many days?
So here is the thing, that doesn't go. So let's make some things clear. So your symptom data, self-report data goes if you're at risk, but the data of who you met only goes today when you are infected, when you
Oh,
are proven to be infected.
and how do I prove to be infected?
So we have actually a very interesting and I think a good example of why you need testing at a national level. All testing data is coordinated centrally. So we have an API which tells us that yesterday these were the people who were found to be infected. And we take that from the back end. And once we know that a particular ID is infected, then we are able to access their contact history and then find out who they may have infected. Now, these interaction parameters take into account both distance and time in order to assess risk. And today we
Okay.
are only doing single degree tracing, because if you want to do recursive tracing, you have to take the data of people who are
Have not been infected, or
infected but are at risk.
have not been proven
Exactly.
by being infected.
Exactly.
Okay,
Yeah.
so you have a national system, and all the people with your and basically your phone number is connected to your identity
Yeah.
of India, your national identity system.
No, 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 no. So this is not connected for various reasons. I don't want to get into that.
Okay.
But
No, but I mean,
we want,
I've done a test. I mean, I've done a test. The app says, "Hey, you're in trouble," and I basically go to some place and I can do a test. Is it easy to get a test now in India? You don't have to wait a
yes,
long. You don't have to wait a long time, or is it very good in the big cities and a little bit less on
I
all the
think
smaller?
I won't comment on that. But what I see on the data is that the lag is pretty low. So people are getting tested within 1 or 2 days of reporting symptoms.
Okay, and how much is it to be tested? How much is a test?
Um, I believe it's. I believe it's 5,000 rupees for. But I think it's free for people who cannot afford it. But
Okay, and
I don't
how
know.
much is
I
five
don't know.
thousand rupees? How much
Um,
dollars?
that would be about like 70, $80. But again, that's only for people I think who can afford to pay.
Yeah.
For underprivileged people, it's free.
Okay.
And
And it
I
takes and it takes about a day or something like that to get to you get tested, and a day later you get the test results, and
yeah,
that's put into a national system, and that
yes,
is also linked back to the app. So the moment that
correct,
the app
correct.
knows, hey, you have been is it also being does the app say, hey, you have been officially you have COVID?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So
and
in a
then
sense, it does.
at that moment when you have an official testing result, at that moment your Bluetooth and your GPS coordinates of where you met the Bluetooth are being uploaded to the server.
Yes, that is correct. That is
Okay,
correct.
yeah,
And
and everybody
at
gets
that point,
warned. Yeah,
everyone gets warned.
yeah,
So a couple of things here I think that are really important, right? One is why you're doing it. One is the Bluetooth tracing aspect of it, but the second is syndromic mapping, right? And I think that's where a lot of confusion is emanating. So there's an architectural choice between a centralized and a decentralized system, right? And we are all for, we could go to decentralized, but in the beginning, it's very important to test all of this in ground truth data. And that's why for a country like India with 1 billion people, we already have ground truth data
yeah.
because we were able to tweak the centralized approach and quickly run this and understand it. And tomorrow we can go to a decentralized approach. But
No, but I mean, I think it's really impressive that you are already able to connect this app to the centralized testing database.
yeah,
That's
yes,
possible. That you have in a country like India,
yeah,
who has many cities and many different levels of sophistication. That you have a centralized database of testing. That is
yeah,
already
yeah.
impressive. And why is that possible in a country like India, with 1.3 billion people, and in Holland with 70 million, we cannot get this done? Why is that?
Okay, so I think here is this may be a little controversial, but let me speak my mind. All right, I think that the debate between privacy and public good needs to be way more nuanced.
Hmm.
So what I mean by that is when it shouldn't be that, oh my God, this data is going, so now I should just stop and do nothing with it.
Yeah.
You have to understand what is the risk if a particular piece of data goes to someone.
Yeah.
For example, in digital payments, I was discussing with this guy who actually was PayPal's product chief at some point, worked with Elon Musk, and he built PayPal in its early days. And he was saying that, we were convincing people to move credit cards online, and people said, I'll never move my credit card online. It's unsafe. Why should I give my credit card to you? And they had to prove to them that actually it's much safer to use your credit card online than give it to a server at a restaurant.
Mm-hmm.
But people had this irrational fear. And so the way they did that was they said, look, even if someone has your recipient address, so for example, the UPI system I used, let's say someone has my UPI ID.
Yeah.
What can they do with it? Maybe they can send me some money, and I will thank them for that. But they can't take money outside my account. So you
Yeah.
have to understand
No.
what
So
is
I
what you're
understand.
getting.
It's where you're a little bit more. People are more prepared to give up their data when it's basically serving and their
Not just that. Not
uh,
just that. I think people need to
their
be
own goal
technologically.
and the public goal. So
People need
they.
to be aware that there are privacy preserving techniques. So
Hmm.
there's this
Yeah.
UN task force that I'm also invited to on privacy preserving computation. We're meeting tomorrow. And there are
Okay.
a lot of privacy preserving techniques you can use, but that doesn't mean that you shouldn't share any data. When you order something from an online
No,
service, they take your data anyway, and they take your GPS
I
location and
would say,
everything.
and this is a much more important thing.
This is
So
a much more important thing.
let's talk about. You have this app now, and basically, when did you get involved in this project, and when did this project get started?
I think I've lost track of time.
Yeah, we're
But
now
around
in May the 10th.
May the 10th. So I
Two
would say
days I
that
have
I
my
got
birthday. Yeah.
you. Today's your birthday.
Yeah, and you started, and
Happy
basically
birthday.
the app. Thank you. In 2 days, but I mean, you basically
Yeah.
started. The app has been in the beginning of May. The app came to was released, right?
No. The app was released earlier than that. I'm actually not aware of the exact date. I know I got involved with the project on like the first week of 21st of March. But at that point, the app wasn't released. It was going through the design phases. Uh, Offices in the country, important people were
Yeah.
checking everything about the app and scalability and security. But I do know that when we launched it officially, within 13 days, we had 50 million downloads, and that's the most for any app in history
Yeah, and now
ever.
you're at 100 million, right? You have
Close to
now
100
100
million.
million thing. And so what are the but so it started before that, and you say it started. So let's say how this app got started, and then we talk about the results which came out of it. So first you had a hackathon. Was that in February or in January? No, in
I'm not aware.
February.
I'm sorry, Vincent. I don't want to comment and give an
No,
incorrect.
okay.
I
But there
just
was a
don't know.
hackathon, and then basically something came out of it, and then a group
Yeah,
was formed.
yeah.
And was it companies, were it individuals, were it volunteers, or was it
So
a
it's
straightforward project? Was it more
yeah, yeah.
public-private with a lot
It's
of
it's
volunteers?
it's public-private. There are lots of people contributing to it, but the control and access of data is solely with the government. But there are lots of people contributing code, creatives. Everyone is really like, for example, Ajay Devgan made a video on his own and shared it with us just to be able to convince people. And I think now it's turning into more of a public movement around it. With
Yeah.
I think uh, the Honorable Prime Minister personally pushing and asking the people to use it. That has given us a lot of downloads and allowed a
Yeah, and
lot of people
100
to start
million
using it.
is a really nice thing. And we say we need 60% of the population needs to use it. Then it
Mhm.
becomes useful. But I mean, you
Yeah,
have now maybe you're at 6 or 7%, but it's 100 million people.
yeah.
How
That's
useful is it so far?
that's. I'm glad you asked me that. So we were also surprised by it because my own calculation showed that the proportion of the effectiveness of the app is determined by the square of the penetration of the app in the population, and so it should only become effective at very high rates. However, it seems that most of the spread in India is happening in cities, and that's where smartphone penetration is also very high. So the numbers we're getting are that in our highest risk category, basis ground truth data, more than 40% of people that we are tracing are actually turning out positive, right?
Yeah.
Um, in our lowest risk category, more than 18% are turning out positive, whereas national testing efficiency is around 5%.
And what
So
you say, the tracing. So I basically get a message. You have been involved with somebody. You have been contacted with somebody who is now officially being diagnosed as COVID. And then of these people, when they test themselves, between 18 and 40% are really also
yes,
tested positively. Yeah, so that's
exactly. That's
huge.
the
And
ground truth.
you don't need 60% penetration. You
Yeah,
basically you find
yeah.
you can see all the hotspots building up.
No, yeah, yeah, you can see that. And the other thing is, in terms of the number of people traced, we have already traced more than 60,000 people have been
How
notified.
how
And
much?
out of them,
60?
60,000.
60,000 people have been notified, and of that, between
More than
20 and
that,
forty
more than
percent
that.
have already COVID.
Exactly.
So
So
it's
we estimate that we traced around 15,000 people who are actually infected. And if you look at India's recent infection numbers, that's actually a significant proportion of the numbers you see today.
yeah,
So we believe we are already having an impact,
yeah,
which will obviously, but we need many more people to download it, and therefore people need to understand how it works, how it's privacy first by design, and everyone should make their own choice basis information, right?
yeah.
People
And
should make their own.
do they find that, is that a big discussion in India about privacy? Do a lot of people care about that, or
I
do
think a
they
lot of
just
people,
care? Do
yeah,
they,
no,
when there's a
we,
serious amount of people becoming infected, is that privacy less important, or how does that work?
I think privacy is important. That's why this app is so privacy prepared by design, right? It's preserved. It's much more privacy preserving than any other app you use on a daily basis. Every single moment in the design process that we were engineering this, the question that we were answering was, what is the minimum amount of data that we need for this first, and how can we mask that data, and kind of make sure that where can we hash it. So for example, the phone number, right? When you enter your phone number, it's hashed to a device ID, and your phone number is never referred to again in any communication between the app or server. Only when it's required to inform you, at that point it's linked back again, and that
But
linkage is
what
stored on
about
a secure version.
when is somebody going to call me? Because the app can inform me. They
Yeah.
never need to know my phone number again. I mean, they can use it as a verification.
No,
But
no,
when
that's not.
am I also being called at a certain point?
Yeah, because in India, there are varying levels of digital literacy, right? So you can't just rely on the notification-based approach. The data shows us that many people don't read their notifications, right? And so if they don't read their notification, you can get to know, and you'll get a call, and they will tell you that, look, you need to take these precautions in order to keep your family safe.
Yeah.
And we believe that that part is really important.
Okay. So, and you see that it's really useful at areas where there's a very high density. I have the map behind me of India. You can see the deep red parts. Is
Mhm.
that also the parts where the big cities are and where the amount of where
Yeah.
the disease is spreading?
Yes, that's correct. So we actually looked at the traced contacts. They are the highest where the infection number is also the highest. So
Okay.
that's like an independent signal kind of confirming that our tracing is working.
Yeah.
Um,
And so can you see, so you help individuals to become more aware and be to that they are tested and that they protect themselves.
right.
But you can also, can you show us maybe some maps you can see that you can see, hey, are there already some videos that you can see the spreading in a particular area
We
that
do
it is
have a
spreading? And
we
is
do have
there,
a dashboard. I don't think I'm authorized to show that, unfortunately. But there is a dashboard with the spread information. That's how you calculate uh, basis self-reporting. Where the emerging hotspots can be.
yeah, okay. Do you know the total amount of budget which was allocated for this project?
No, no, I don't know. Sorry.
Was it very expensive, or is it relatively? I
No,
mean, it was
that
fast and it was a relatively small group. How many people in the government which are really are working on this?
I'll credit my colleague Arnab. I believe I have introduced him to you as well, Arnab Kumar, at some point in the last year. He's the one who kind of got this started. And a lot of these things, we have got people supporting us as well. For example, I think one of our partners is on a government approved cloud service provider, has made some of the cloud services free. And government is obviously willing to spend all the resources required to make this effective, because we believe that the lives of people come first, right? So whatever you have to spend in
Okay.
order to protect.
So, Alec, when is your app and your back office project going to be open source so it can be spreading around? I mean, of
No,
course, making it open source is a lot of work. You have to document
exactly.
everything. But what is the plan for that?
That's it. So you hit the nail on the head. So we have been dreaming about open sourcing it from day one. But again, the priority was to get it working, get the ground truth, actually save people. And I think now there'll be slowly moving towards the open source aspect. So documentation will begin, and teams can then start putting pieces of the code out
Okay.
there.
How many
Um,
people are working totally on the project? Is it 50 or 10 or 100 or?
you know, it would be hard to quantify that because it's a national effort. I know that on the tech side, for example, on the data science side, there is a core group of three of us. Me, Naveen Sethia, Ankit Raj. We work very closely and debate every aspect of the contact tracing data science before
Yeah.
implementing it. Similarly, there are many other teams. There's the overall CTO of the effort, Lalitesh, the senior individual from the PMO, Arnab, Prashant, Deep. All of these individuals are donating their time and their teams to the effort. And then there is NIC, right? And there are field offices around the country. So this dashboard that I told you, we have given it to the states because and even to district administrations, because they then need to know what supplies they need. In a country like India, you can't manage everything centrally. So we have these access controls by different levels of administration. So in a
Uh-huh.
particular state, they can see the details of their state,
Yeah,
not
yeah.
every state, and
Yeah,
things
yeah.
like that. So that's how so I would count all of them as part of the effort as well.
Yeah.
Um,
You've been working on this since March 23rd. How many hours do you spend on this project?
Actually, it's been rough time in that respect because I have 3 classes going on. So my classes usually happen on US time, which is usually between 7 to 10 p.m. or 12 to 3 a.m. And in the daytime, I spend most of my time working on this. So,
I can imagine.
so my grades are probably going to take a hit, but I
Yeah,
think I can
but I mean,
recover it.
you'll learn so much from this thing, and you do this totally on on a voluntarily basis.
Yes, yes, I'm doing that because I think, uh, as you said, there's a huge opportunity to learn and also a huge opportunity to serve other people,
Yeah,
which
you do
normally
something.
is hard. It's hard to get. It's
I
hard to
would say.
get to a place where you're actually able to help people in reality on the ground.
Yeah, I see now that they are going to expand the amount of people using it. So India orders mandatory use of this contact tracing app for all
Yeah, I don't.
workers.
I think there is some. I don't want to comment on that. I think there are some misinterpretations of government orders happening. I'm not sure what's happening over here, but obviously, the idea is to have the app used, as much as possible by people. There is an externality effect, right? In the sense that the app protects you, but more of the value is that it protects people around you. And we want to encourage, one way we are thinking of increasing the efficiency is by using behavioral economics to give nudges to people. So for instance, I could tell you that X number of people in your area are using the app, or the Bluetooth on rate of people around your area is 70%, yours is only 50%. So then you're incentivized to behave and be more of a community participant. So we
Yeah.
want that to emerge from the grassroots and more people to download.
Is it already known, that people have problems with, because I hear about 30% of the people have Bluetooth on because it basically gives problems with battery, and the same with GPS.
Yeah, yeah.
How expensive is it to have this app on your battery life
It's not very expensive. Obviously, Bluetooth does have a battery impact, but
and GPS?
because yeah, but we're not taking we're not scanning that frequently also, right?
Two
If you
times
get
a
2 or 3
minute,
times a
yeah.
minute, that doesn't have much of a battery impact. I certainly haven't noticed anything. And
Okay.
you saw my Bluetooth rate; it was 99%. So I've never turned off Bluetooth
Yeah.
since I downloaded it.
Hey, question: is there a website describing this project? Can you share the screen with that website where
There's
we
a
can get some
there's a
more information about it?
there's a Twitter handle, uh, uh, but there's no website yet. As I said, the idea has been to
The app,
get
the
the app
app is
running.
out. Your 100 million people are using it.
Yeah.
60,000 people are traced. 15,000 people are already committed. And there's no website about the whole project. That's
Yes,
really, you
because the
guys
prior
move fast. You guys move
yeah.
really fast. Yeah.
No, this has been it has been very clear for us from the day one is we need to get the basic engine of the app running. We want to warn people, and we want to have a platform that will help people ward off the disease. The second important part, which I would like you to highlight, is that government has committed in the privacy policy to a sunset clause, right? So everyone's data is going to be deleted at 30, 45, or 60 days, depending on whether they've been infected or not, because we want to make sure that people have confidence when they download it. At the same time, we didn't want to hinder ourselves by going for a decentralized approach, right? Imagine doing this decentralized. What would I have to do? I would have to have the contact tracing algorithm on every phone. Then let's say 90 million people have it, and I find out there's a mistake, and then I want to update it. It takes 10 days to update 90 million phones. It's never going to happen, and by that time, people will die.
Yeah.
So in fact, I was, from an architectural viewpoint, the elegance of the decentralized approach is more. So as an engineer, you would always want to do decentralized, but I realized that it won't work, and I was proven that myself. The first algorithm I wrote for contact tracing was actually wrong. A lot of people, I sent it onward, a committee approved it, but there was a strong mathematical reason. Basically, I used point probabilities for recursive tracing, and it turns out that has a mistake.
Yeah.
And then we worked with a whole host of experts, and I had to then fight the next battle of convincing people that I have actually made a mistake. So people were like, no, this is all correct. I said, no, I'm telling you, there's a mistake. I made it myself. I know there's a mistake. So we need to update it before launching it. And then we kind of updated it. But that wouldn't have been possible if we were doing a client-side approach. The second thing that wouldn't have been possible is that we now know symptom data as well as self-reported data as well as tracing data on a single platform. So the richness of this data set is massive. We already have requests from researchers from all around the world who want to understand the disease transmission parameters better. And I don't think there's any data set as rich as this one that can give you that information.
A question,
our mandate is to share any parameters that could be useful for anyone in the world.
It's definitely, we need to know so much more. We don't even know the basics about it. And if you have this kind of data, it can be very useful. A question about Bluetooth. Bluetooth is a pain in the butt. It's different on every phone. Android is a mess. Apple is a pain in the butt and that kind of stuff. How useful is sometimes, when you're 2 meters, 2 meters from each other, you connect, but sometimes 20 meters. It really depends if you're Samsung or under. How did that work in practice, working with the Bluetooth mess?
Yeah. I'm debating whether to share a screen with you because that has the exact answer that you're looking for. Let me just check 1 second. Okay, this is like early documentation of what we are doing. Yeah, so the thing is that Bluetooth to distance conversions have a lot of error.
Lots of them, yeah.
Yeah, but what we were told by epidemiologists is that the distance cutoff, right? So the cutoff is like a step function.
Yeah.
So within that area, you have almost a constant probability, and then it certainly drops. The problem is you don't know what this X should be. Yeah. So we actually calibrated using experiments in real world data. We found an error rate, and we took 95% of the error within this cutoff and use that. And now here is the really interesting thing. Now that we have ground truth data, the next step is we're going to use optimization, and we're going to run an algorithm that will keep changing this curve you see here, and it'll keep changing the infectivity curve as well, which is over here. Where did it go? Sorry. Yeah. We keep changing this curve as well over here. I'm going to stop sharing because I've got given the gist. It'll find out at which curve are you getting the best results. So till now we consulted
and
the best.
And it will also make that dependent on the phone, because the phones are, they can be a factor of 10 difference.
It's like right now we have done a non-machine learning approach, but now that we have ground truth data, you're actually optimizing your parameters to make sure that the accuracy is even higher. So that's the next step. And it can only be done with ground truth data because you don't actually know the disease transmission parameters, right? But now that we do, we'll just use machine learning and kind of figure that out and be able to improve our accuracy even further.
Have you already built report? I'm really, the moment that you can share with me the dashboard and show me and that kind of stuff, the moment that is possible, then we should talk again, because I'd love to see some examples of that. Can you already, do you already have algorithms where you see that it's spreading out, that the R is, 0.3 or 4, or it's going down to
So
0.9
R,
or 0.8?
yeah,
Already have some of
the
those reports built?
R may not be the best parameter for sparse networks, is what epidemiologists tell us. But yeah, we do in fact have reports by state. What is the implied R? So when you do contact tracing, you know how many people are likely to be affected. So what does that imply about R? But that's not real R. That's just like, you can call it R star, because
Yeah.
it only applies to people who have the Bluetooth,
Yes.
right?
No, that's why
Um,
at the moment you have 100 million. It's still,
yeah,
but I think in some cities you must have a higher percentage. I mean, maybe
of
in
course.
Delhi you have a
Yeah,
much higher, and on the
of
countryside
course.
you have way less or something. How
Yeah.
much, for example, in Delhi are using it?
We're actually kind of doing that analysis right now, because the main purpose has been not to look at where it's happening, but to notify people at this point. So once now that we have done that, the next is to analyze this data, try and figure out some patterns, figure out where the transmission is happening with the most. And there's a separate team working on syndromic mapping. I'm not involved with that, so
Okay.
they will have these answers better.
Alec, thank you very much for this, for opening up and also contacting me. And it's really nice. I will send you some information how we do it in the Netherlands. Much
Thank you.
slower, much more step by step, much more sensitive for privacy. But we're
No,
also
but I want to
we're
say,
also getting there. We're also
one.
getting there.
Yeah, no, of course. And every country, everyone has the capability. It's not rocket science.
No.
But I think every person should understand the utility of such a thing and understand the gravity of the situation and what they're actually doing. And
Yeah.
so one more thing I wanted to say is that, the Bluetooth and APIs, right? So Bluetooth is such an issue. So we were very happy when we learned that Google and Apple are coming out with APIs. But unfortunately, a lot of researchers around the world feel that they're very restrictive. And this is not just India, globally. One individual that I wouldn't name, he's one of the top researchers in this field. He said that he personally feels that they are extremely restrictive because they don't allow. It's very hard to do multiple degree tracing, right? Which gives you a lot more infections. And then they have taken a sort of, I think, a call to say that if you use my APIs, you also cannot take location data. But that's kind of imposing a choice on people. Let people make that choice, because location data, as I told you, is very useful to understand disease spread,
Yeah.
and that can save lives. So
Yeah.
why shouldn't people? I agree that no choice should be forced on the people, but aren't they right now forcing a choice on us because they have control over Google and Apple ecosystems? And why are they forcing this choice on us? I don't understand that. Is
Okay.
it because, and I don't want to comment on the why, but the, but globally people feel that there should be more reasoned debate on it.
Yeah.
And one approach they could have followed is a platform approach. They have a Nexus phone, so they built Android. They came out with Nexus, but they allowed others to make their own phones. Where has that philosophy gone?
Yeah.
You should have given the Bluetooth APIs and then allowed people to build different approaches and take consent from their users.
Yeah. Hey, one last question. That is about the technical side. I showed you the app which says the news which says that workers need to basically use this app. Will this app become mandatory when
I
it's working fine? How do you think how or will
that
that be state dependent, or will that be dependent if you work for the government, or
yeah.
how does that work?
I don't have enough context to answer that question, but I do think that you know the whole approach is to convince people that this is something that is going to save you
Yeah.
and save your families, right? And we are also dealing with a very complex challenge with 1.3 billion people. We are a democracy. We are not 1 billion people in an authoritative regime, right? We're 1.3 billion people in a democracy, just like you in Europe or in US. And we need to convince a lot of people at varying degrees of technological literacy and digital literacy, which these are problems all across the world. But you need to convince a huge mass of people um, uh, and understand and explain to them a complex subject that combines epidemiology, network science, privacy preserving technology, and all of
Yeah.
that, and get them to understand where it helps and how they should take informed choices. Our
Okay.
effort is to bring that information to people so that they themselves can take informed choices rather than impose anything.
Okay. Thank you very much,
Thank
Alec.
you.
I really enjoy. I mean, I'm going to have dinner now. You're basically, what time is it there?
It's 10:40 p.m.
10:40. Thank you very much for spending this time. I'm going to get back to you the moment you have a little bit more information, and maybe if your documentation is becoming more aware, that stuff about Bluetooth or about
Right.
the how you're using, how you're basically building all these dashboards.
Right.
Really interesting. Of course, if it's open source, we would love to look at it. Thank you very much for reaching out and sharing this with me. We really
Thank you.
enjoyed having you over in Amsterdam. But this is not as much fun as going to India, but it was already fascinating. Thank
You
you.
should come. You should come to India whenever things get better.
Yeah,
Thank you.
it will take a while. I promised it already. Thank you.
Thank you.